The Empire's worst nightmare realized. A human warship appeared from nowhere. Commander Velrix had served at Outpost Sentinel 7 for 12 years. In all that time, nothing interesting had ever happened. The monitoring station floated at the edge of Valorian Empire space, watching empty darkness. Most days, Velrix wondered why the Empire even kept the station running. His forearms moved across the control panels with practiced boredom. Another shift, another day of staring at empty space. The coffee equivalent in his mug had gone cold hours ago. His second-in-command, a young officer named Kess, dozed at the communication station. Then every alarm in the station started screaming at once. Velrix jumped so hard he knocked over his mug. Kess fell out of her chair. Red warning lights flooded the command center. The main screen showed readings that made no sense. What is happening? Kess shouted over the alarms. Velrix stared at the display. His blood went cold. Shut off those alarms, now. The sudden silence felt worse than the noise. Velrix's hands shook as he pulled up the sensor data again. He had to be reading it wrong. He had to be, sir. Kess moved closer. What is it? There's something out there, Velrix whispered. Something just appeared. Not came out of hyperspace. Not warped in, just appeared. 1 second empty space, the next second something was there. That's impossible, Kess said. Look at the energy readings. Velrix pointed to the screen. Whatever it is, it's massive. Bigger than an Imperial dreadnought, and the power signature. He trailed off, fingers flying across the controls. The computer ran the analysis. Velrix felt his stomach drop when he saw the results. No, he breathed. It cannot be. The screen showed 2 words in bright red. Terran origin confirmed. Kess looked confused. Terran, I don't know that species. Velrix did. He had clearance level 7, high enough to access some of the sealed archives. He had read the forbidden files out of curiosity years ago. He remembered every word now. Get me a visual, he ordered. The main screen switched to the long-range cameras. At first, they saw nothing but stars. Then the computer enhanced the image and they both gasped. The ship was enormous. Its hull was dark, almost black, with strange markings that glowed with a soft blue light. The design was unlike anything in Imperial records. Smooth and curved in some places, sharp and angular in others. It looked deadly and beautiful at the same time. Velrix zoomed in on the hull markings. Letters appeared written in an alphabet he recognized from the archives. 2DF Remembrance. What does 2DF mean? Kess asked. Terran United Defense Force, Velrix said quietly. He felt very cold. Kess, I need you to send a message to Imperial High Command. Use Emergency Channel 9. The Extinction Protocol. The what? Kess looked shocked. Sir, that code hasn't been used in 200 years, Velrix finished. Send it now. Then start evacuation procedures. Evacuate. Why would we? Because they're here for revenge, Velrix said. And if the old records are right, the Valorian Empire just became extinct. We just don't know it yet. On the capital world of Valoria Prime, the emergency message caused chaos. The High Council gathered within the hour. 50 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in the Grand Chamber, arguing loudly. High Counselor Drakon stood at the center, his scales gleaming under the lights. He was old, decorated with medals from 100 campaigns. He had never lost a battle. Silence. His voice echoed through the chamber. I have read the report. 1 ship. 1 single ship appears at our border and you all panic like children. You haven't read the archives, Fleet Admiral Thessa said. She was smaller than Drakon, but moved with quiet authority. I spent the last hour reviewing the sealed files. The Terran incident was 200 years ago, Drakon interrupted. A minor police action against primitive refugees. Are you telling me the mighty Valorian Empire should fear ghosts? Those ghosts destroyed an Imperial patrol without firing a shot, another counselor said nervously. The report says their technology is unknown. Possibly precursor level, Drakon laughed. It was not a kind sound. Precursor technology? Fairy tales. More likely they found some old derelict ship and are trying to scare us. He leaned forward. The Empire has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have conquered 847 systems. We have subjugated dozens of species. Do you really think we should be frightened by 1 ship from a species of scattered refugees? The protocols were written for a reason, Thessa argued. The last High Council left very specific instructions. If the Terrans ever return, we do not engage. We negotiate. We apologize. Draken's voice dripped with contempt. The Valorian Empire apologizes to no one, especially not to primitives who should have died in the darkness. He turned to the military council. I want the 7th Imperial Battle Group dispatched immediately. Surround this ship. If it does not surrender, destroy it. Make an example of it. High Counselor, I must protest, Thessa began. Noted and dismissed, Draken said coldly. This council meeting is over. We will show this ghost what happens when you threaten the Empire. 12 Imperial warships moved through hyperspace toward Outpost Sentinel 7. Leading them was the battlecruiser Eternal Dominion, pride of the Imperial fleet. Its commander Zareth sat in his command chair reviewing the mission. One ship, he muttered to his first officer. They send 12 warships to handle one ship. High Command must be getting paranoid in their old age. The report said it appeared from nowhere, sir. The first officer said carefully. That's unusual technology. Probably a malfunction in the station's sensors, Zareth said. Those old monitoring posts are falling apart. I'll be surprised if we find anything at all when we get there. They dropped out of hyperspace in a standard attack formation. Zareth expected to find empty space or maybe a small vessel. What he found made him grip his armrest tight. The human ship hung in space like a dark predator. It was twice the size of his battlecruiser. Strange lights moved across its hull in patterns that hurt to watch, and it was completely silent. No signals, no communications, nothing. All ships surround the target, Zareth ordered. He kept his voice steady, but something felt wrong. Very wrong. The 12 Imperial warships moved into position, weapons armed. They surrounded the human vessel completely. There was no escape. Open a channel, Zareth said. Standard surrender demand. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Zareth took a breath. Unidentified vessel, this is Commander Zareth of the Valorian Imperial Navy. You have violated Imperial space. Surrender your ship immediately, or you will be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to comply. Silence. The human ship just floated there, dark and quiet. Minutes passed. Zareth's tactical officer kept running scans. Sir, I'm picking up some strange readings. There are power signatures throughout their hull. I can't identify the type, but the energy output is... Sir, it's impossible. No ship that size should be generating that much power. Maybe their reactor is overloading. The first officer suggested hopefully. Maybe they're dying in there. Zareth didn't think so. Something about the way the ship waited felt deliberate. Patient, like a hunter watching prey. 4 minutes, the communications officer said nervously. Zareth armed all weapons. Around him, the other 11 ships did the same. Enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, all aimed at one vessel. Then, after 17 minutes of silence, the human ship finally responded. The transmission came through on every channel at once. Not just military frequencies, but civilian networks too. Every screen in Imperial space suddenly showed the same image. A human woman appeared. She looked young, but her eyes were old. Her uniform was dark blue with silver markings. Behind her, Zareth could see a bridge that looked more like art than engineering. Everything glowed softly. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran United Defense Force ship Remembrance, she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. She spoke perfect Valorian. 200 years ago, your empire encountered a human colony ship called the New Dawn. We were explorers, scientists, families, 3,000 people seeking only to see new stars and learn new things. We had just discovered faster-than-light travel. We were excited to find others in the universe. Her expression didn't change, but something cold entered her eyes. Your Admiral Crenshaw called us pests, vermin to be exterminated before we could spread. He destroyed our ship without warning, without mercy. 3,000 souls murdered, men, women, children. He laughed while he did it. The records show he called it pest control. Zareth felt his blood run cold. 273 of us survived. Captain Chen continued. We escaped in damaged escape pods. We fled into uncharted space, and there, in a nebula your scouts were too afraid to explore, we found something. A gift from a species that died 1,000,000 years before you learned to make fire. She leaned forward slightly. We could have come back immediately. The precursor technology we found could have destroyed you in days. But we didn't. Do you know why? Silence on every Imperial channel. 1 billion beings watched and waited. Because we refused to become you, Chen said softly. We took 200 years to build a society that would never misuse such power. We created laws, oversight, ethics. We made sure we would never be the monsters you are. She straightened. We are the Terran United Defense Force. We are the children and grandchildren of those you murdered. The Empire's worst nightmare realized. A human warship appeared from nowhere. The footage spread across the Empire faster than anyone could stop it. Within hours, every planet, every station, every ship had seen the Eternal Dominion cut in half by a single shot. The most powerful battle cruiser in the Imperial fleet, destroyed like it was made of paper. Panic followed the footage. On Valoria Prime, High Counselor Dracon watched the video for the 20th time. His office was dark except for the screen showing that terrible white beam splitting his ship apart. His pride, his achievement. It's a trick, he said to the empty room. Special effects, propaganda. But he knew it wasn't. The sensor data from the surviving ships confirmed everything. The humans had technology that shouldn't exist. Weapons that bypassed shields. Power sources that violated known physics. The ability to appear and disappear at will. Fleet Admiral Thessa entered without knocking. She looked tired and angry. I told you not to engage them, she said quietly. How dare you? Dracon began. 1,300 crew members are dead. Thessa's voice cracked like a whip. 1,300 beings who followed your orders. And for what? Your pride? Draken's hand moved toward the weapon at his belt. Thessa didn't even blink. Go ahead, she said. Kill me for telling you the truth. It won't change what's coming. I spent all night in the archives, Dracon. I read everything about the Terran incident. Every file. Every recording. Every piece of evidence. Ancient history, Dracon muttered. They were peaceful. Thessa slammed her hand on his desk. They had families. Children. Admiral Crenshaw destroyed them without provocation, without warning. He called it a training exercise. The old High Council covered it up because they were ashamed. They left protocols in case the humans ever returned. Protocols you ignored. I will not show weakness to. They don't want you to show weakness, Thessa interrupted. They want justice. There's a difference. She pulled up a hologram. This is from their transmission. Captain Chen mentioned precursor technology. I had our science division analyze it. The hologram showed complex mathematical models that made Draken's head hurt. Our best scientists say the power. Signatures match theoretical. Models for technology millions of years beyond us. Quantum phase manipulation. Reality anchoring. Dimensional shifting. Things we thought were impossible. Thessa looked at him directly. They have technology from a race that achieved perfection and then disappeared. And they've had 200 years to learn how to use it. Then we're doomed, Dracon said bitterly. Only if you keep being stupid, Thessa replied. The humans haven't attacked our worlds. They destroyed one military ship in self-defense. They want us to come to them. To negotiate. I will not surrender. Whatever Dracon was going to say died as every screen in his office activated at once. Not just his screens. According to the alerts flooding in, every screen in Imperial space had just turned on. Captain Chen's face appeared again. People of the Valorian Empire, she said. We know you are afraid. That is good. Fear is the beginning of wisdom. Dracon watched in horror as she continued. For 200 years you have been told the Empire is invincible. You have been told you rule by right of strength. You have been taught to see other species as lesser, as things to be conquered and used. The screen split, showing images from the archives. Imperial ships bombarding civilian centers, conquered species being led in chains, children separated from parents and sold as labor. This is your empire, Chen said softly, built on blood and suffering, sustained by fear and oppression. You call it order, we call it evil. Dracon reached for the controls to cut the transmission. Nothing worked. The humans controlled every communication system. We did not return for conquest. Chen continued. We returned for justice. For the 3,000 innocent souls your empire murdered. For the billions you have enslaved and broken across 800 worlds. The screen showed a timer. It read 72 hours. In 3 days you will answer for your crimes. We suggest you use this time wisely. The transmission ended. Normal communications returned. But the damage was done. Within an hour, rebellion started. The Krell species conquered 800 years ago, rose up on their home world. They tore down Imperial statues and executed the occupation forces. Their leaders sent a message to the human ships. We remember our freedom. Help us reclaim it. On 17 other worlds, similar uprisings began. Species that had been crushed for centuries suddenly saw hope. If the mighty empire could be challenged, perhaps they could be free. Draken called an emergency military council. Every admiral and general in range attended. The holographic conference chamber filled with worried faces. "Status report," Dracon demanded. "Rebellions on 19 worlds and counting," one general said. "We're sending troops, but the troops are refusing orders," another admiral interrupted. "Especially conscripts from conquered species. The humans are broadcasting messages directly to them, telling them they're not the enemy, that they're victims too, jamming their signals." Draken roared. "We can't, sir," a technical officer said nervously. "They're using transmission methods we don't understand. Our jammers do nothing. What about the human ship? The Remembrance?" "Gone, sir," Fleet Admiral Thessa said. "It disappeared 3 hours ago, but—" She hesitated. "But what?" "We've detected 2 more human ships. TUDF Retribution and TUDF Justice. Same size and power signature as the Remembrance. They're in different sectors scanning our installations. 3 ships." Draken laughed harshly. "The Empire has 10,000 warships. We can—" "Sir," a young intelligence officer stood, trembling. "There are more, many more. Our deep space sensors are picking up signatures. 47 human vessels total, all appearing and disappearing at will, all with the same impossible technology." Silence filled the chamber. "We need to negotiate," Thessa said quietly. "Before they decide, talking is pointless." "Never," Dracon said. "I want the Grand Armada assembled. Every ship we have, every weapon. We will crush them with pure numbers." "That's suicide," Thessa protested. "That's an order," Draken replied. "Send the call. All ships to the Nexus Point. We will meet these humans in one decisive battle, and we will show the galaxy that the Valorian Empire does not bow to anyone." Across the Empire, ships began moving. Dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, destroyers, carriers. Every warship that could fly headed toward the Nexus Point, a strategic location deep in Imperial space. It would be the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, 2,000 warships gathering for one battle. On board the TUDF Remembrance, Captain Sarah Chen watched the Imperial fleet movements on her holographic display. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly. The bridge itself looked more like a meditation chamber than a military vessel. Soft lighting, curved surfaces, plants growing in wall gardens. Her second-in-command, Commander James Park, stepped up beside her. "They're gathering everything they have," he said. 2,000 ships. Against our 47. "They think numbers matter," Chen replied. "They still don't understand what we are. Do you think they'll listen? When we broadcast to their crews?" "Some will. The conscripts especially, the conquered species forced to fight." Chen looked sad. "But the true believers, the proud Imperial officers, they'll choose death over admitting they were wrong." "War is coming then." "War was always coming," Chen said. "From the moment they decided our lives meant nothing. From the moment they laughed while murdering children." She turned to face him. "But we will not become them, James. We will offer mercy to those who deserve it. We will show justice, not vengeance. And those who refuse mercy?" Chen's expression hardened. "Then they will learn why we spent 200 years preparing. They will learn what it means to face humanity when humanity has no reason to hold back." She pulled up a communication panel. "Send a message to the Grand Armada. To every ship, every crew member. Tell them we know many are forced to fight. Tell them we offer safety to any who lay down arms. Tell them this war is not with the powerless but with those who gave the orders." "And Draken?" "Draken will stand trial," Chen said firmly. "He and every other Imperial leader who ordered atrocities. They will face justice. Real justice with evidence and fair proceedings. We will show the galaxy what justice looks like." She looked at the timer, counting down. 53 hours remaining. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "All ships to combat readiness. Activate the precursor systems. And pray that some of them are smart enough to surrender." In his quarters aboard the Imperial flagship Eternal Victory, High Counselor Draken stood before a mirror. He wore his full military dress uniform covered in medals. He looked every inch the conquering hero, but his hands shook. He remembered the footage of the Eternal Dominion being cut in half. He remembered Captain Chen's cold eyes. He remembered the reports of human ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. For the first time in his long life, Draken felt something he had made countless others feel. He felt afraid, but pride was stronger than fear. Pride and the absolute certainty that the Empire could not fall. Must not fall, because if the Empire fell, everything he had believed, everything he had done, every order he had given would be revealed as the actions of a monster, and Draken refused to be the monster. In his mind, he was the hero, the protector, the necessary evil that kept order in the galaxy. The Empire's worst nightmare realized. A human warship appeared from nowhere. The Grand Armada assembled at the nexus point like a steel storm. 2,000 warships spread across space in perfect military formation. Dreadnoughts at the center, battlecruisers forming the second line, destroyers and fighters filling the gaps. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. High Counselor Draken stood on the bridge of the Eternal Victory, watching his fleet with satisfaction. This was power. This was might. This was everything the Empire represented. All ships report ready, sir, his tactical officer said. Good. Draken opened a fleet-wide channel. Warriors of the Valorian Empire. Today we face an enemy who thinks they can challenge 3,000 years of dominance. They hide behind stolen technology and empty threats, but we know the truth. We know that superior numbers and Imperial discipline will always triumph. Today we remind the galaxy why we rule. Today we crush these human insects once and for all. Cheers echoed across the communication channels. Not from everyone. Draken noticed some channels stayed quiet. Probably cowards from the conquered species. It didn't matter. He had enough true believers. Sir, sensors detect incoming vessels, the tactical officer announced. 47 contacts. Matching the human ship signatures. Only 47? Draken laughed. They're either insane or stupid. Probably both. The human fleet dropped out of whatever strange method they used for travel. They appeared in a loose formation, not military at all. It looked almost casual, like they were out for a pleasant trip rather than facing the largest battle fleet in history. All weapons, target lock, Draken ordered. But hold fire. Let me speak first. He opened a channel to the human ships. Terran vessels, this is High Counselor Draken of the Valorian Empire. You are outnumbered 40-1. Surrender now and you will be granted a quick death. Refuse and we will— Counselor Draken. Captain Chen's voice interrupted him. Her face appeared on every screen in the fleet. We're not here to talk to you. Before Draken could respond, the human ships began broadcasting on every channel, every frequency, every private communication line. They weren't talking to the officers. They were talking directly to the crews. Captain Chen's image split into thousands of copies, appearing on screens throughout the entire fleet. Soldiers in barracks, engineers in engine rooms, pilots and fighters. Everyone saw her face. Crew members of the Grand Armada, she said gently. We know many of you don't want to be here. We know many of you are conscripts from conquered worlds. Krell, Tharnax, Belden, Sororian. 23 species forced to fight for an empire that enslaved you. In the engine room of the destroyer Crimson Dawn, a Krell engineer named Thex stopped working. He stared at the screen. A human woman spoke directly to him in his own language. You have families, Chen continued. Parents, children, siblings. You fight because you were told you had no choice. Because the Empire implanted loyalty chips in your brains. Because refusing meant death for everyone you love. Thex touched the scar behind his ear where they had put the chip. The thing that made it hurt to disobey Imperial orders. The thing that made him a slave. We have been jamming those chips for the past 3 hours, Chen said. Test it, think a rebellious thought. Nothing will happen. You're free, Thex thought. I hate the Empire. I want to go home, nothing, no pain, no punishment. The chip was dead, he wasn't alone. Across the fleet, thousands of conscripted soldiers realized they were free for the first time in years. Decades, some of them their entire lives. Power down your weapons, Chen urged. Deactivate your ships. We will not harm you. This war is not with you. It never was. You are victims, not enemies. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Draken watched in horror as ship after ship started powering down, whole sections of his fleet going dark. What are they doing? He screamed. Reactivate those ships now. Sir, they're not responding to commands, the communications officer said in panic. The crews are— They're mutinying, sir. Then execute them. All senior officers are authorized to execute mutineers on sight. But the order came too late. On 300 ships, the crews had already locked the senior officers in their quarters. The conscripted species, freed from their loyalty chips, remembered who their real enemy was. Sir, we're losing 30% of the fleet, the tactical officer reported. No, 40%. The ships are still there, but they're not following orders. Dracon felt control slipping away. The remaining ships, fire on the mutineers. Destroy them as an example. Sir, that's our own. Do it. But before any shots could be fired, the human ships moved. They didn't fly in any normal sense. They simply appeared in new positions, scattered throughout the Imperial formation. 1 second they were far away. The next second they were among the fleet. How? The tactical officer began. Teleportation, Fleet Admiral Thessa said quietly from her station. She had stayed silent during Dracon's speech, but now she spoke. They're using quantum displacement, moving through folded space. We can't predict it. We can't stop it. Then we fire everything at once. Dracon snarled. All ships, all weapons, fire at will. The remaining loyal ships opened fire. Thousands of weapons lit up space. Enough firepower to destroy entire planets. None of it touched the human ships. The attack simply phased through them like they weren't there. Or the human ships blinked out of existence for a microsecond, letting the weapons pass through empty space. Or reality itself bent, sending the attack spiraling off into nothing. Impossible, Dracon whispered. Then the human ships returned fire. But they didn't use weapons like the beam that had destroyed the Eternal Dominion. Instead, they used something worse. Every Imperial ship's computer system shut down simultaneously. Weapons offline, shields offline, life support flickering, navigation dead, communication systems frozen. Across the fleet, bridges went dark except for emergency lighting. Officers shouted at their crews to fix something, anything. Engineers ran diagnostic after diagnostic, finding nothing wrong. The systems were just turned off, like someone had flipped a switch. In the fighter bays, pilots found their ships wouldn't start. In the weapon batteries, gunners stared at dead control panels. In the engine rooms, reactors ran at minimal power. The entire Grand Armada had been reduced to floating junk. Captain Chen's voice filled the silence. We control your systems now. Every ship, every weapon, every computer in your fleet belongs to us. We could shut down your life support. We could activate your self-destruct systems. We could open your airlocks and space every single one of you. A pause. Let that sink in, but we won't. Because unlike you, we don't murder the helpless. Dracon stood frozen on his dark bridge. This couldn't be happening. The Empire couldn't lose. Not like this. Not without even fighting. You wanted to know what precursor technology could do, Chen continued. This is quantum entanglement warfare. We linked our systems to yours the moment you arrived. Your computers have been compromised since before you even saw us. Every command you gave, every order you issued, we heard it before your own crew did. She leaned forward on her screen. You lost this battle before it began. You lost this war 200 years ago when you decided human lives meant nothing. Dracon found his voice. You can't. The Empire will never surrender. The Empire already has, Chen replied. Look around you. Dracon did. On the auxiliary screens that still functioned on emergency power, he saw his fleet. Hundreds of ships had their entire crews on deck, hands raised in surrender. The conscripted species had taken control. Other ships drifted powerless, their systems completely dead. Only a handful of vessels still flew Imperial colors. The Grand Armada, the greatest military force ever assembled, had fallen in minutes without the humans firing a single lethal shot. Senior Imperial officers, Chen said, you have a choice. Stand down, and you will be treated fairly under galactic law. Face trial for your crimes. Some of you may be guilty only of following orders. Others, her voice grew cold. Others have ordered atrocities. Either way, you will face justice, and I will never surrender to you, Dracon screamed. He turned to his crew. Activate the flagship's self-destruct sequence. We'll ram their command ship. We'll take them with us. His bridge crew stared at him. The tactical officer spoke carefully. Sir, the self-destruct system is offline. Like everything else. Then activate it manually. Override the computers. Do something. Sir, Fleet Admiral Thessa stood up. It's over. I'll have you executed for cowardice. Dracon drew his weapon, aiming it at her. Thessa didn't move. Go ahead. Add one more crime to your list. Dracon's hand shook. Around him, his bridge crew was backing away, looking at him with fear. No, not fear, disgust. You're all traitors, Dracon said. Every one of you. When the Empire rises again, he vanished. 1 second he was on his bridge. The next second he was somewhere else entirely. Dracon stumbled, disoriented. He was in a different room now. White walls, soft lighting, and standing in front of him, Captain Sarah Chen. Around her, human marines in dark armor held weapons that glowed with soft blue light. Where am I? You're on the Remembrance, Chen said. We teleported you from your bridge. We also teleported your senior command staff, 347 Imperial officers who gave orders for war crimes, genocide, slavery, torture. The Empire's worst nightmare realized. A human warship appeared from nowhere fleet. Admiral Thessa stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the chaos of the collapsed Grand Armada. Ships floated powerless. Crews surrendered. The greatest military force in galactic history had been defeated without the enemy firing a single killing shot. Her communication console beeped. A message from the human fleet. Admiral Thessa. Captain Chen's voice was professional but not unkind. We've been monitoring your service record. Unlike Dracon, you argued against engagement. You tried to follow the old protocols. You showed wisdom when others showed only pride. Thessa felt her muscles tense. Was this mercy or mockery? The Terran United Defense Force offers you a choice, Chen continued. Help us rebuild what the Empire destroyed or retire to whatever life you wish. We don't seek revenge against those who tried to do right. Why? Thessa asked. Why trust me at all? Because justice isn't revenge, Chen replied. Justice means understanding the difference between leaders who ordered atrocities and soldiers who had no choice. You tried to stop this war. That matters. Thessa thought about the thousands of files she had read, the atrocities, the genocides, the enslaved species. She thought about her own role in maintaining the Empire, even when she knew it was wrong. I accept, she said quietly, but I want one thing. Name it, let me testify. At the trials, I have access to sealed files, evidence, everything the Empire tried to hide. Let me help prosecute the ones who gave the orders. There was a pause. Then Chen responded, and Thessa heard something like respect in her voice. Approved. Welcome to the Reconstruction, Admiral. Across Imperial space, the news spread. The Grand Armada had fallen. High Counselor Draken was captured. The war was over before it truly began. The reaction was chaos. On the capital world of Valoria Prime, riots broke out. Some citizens were angry that the Empire had fallen. Others celebrated their freedom. Most were simply confused, uncertain what came next after 3,000 years of Imperial rule. On conquered worlds, the response was simpler. Pure joy. The Krell people tore down every Imperial monument. They found the governors who had ruled them and brought them to face their own courts. Some executions happened before anyone could stop them. 200 years of anger couldn't be contained easily. The Tharnak species, enslaved for 500 years, simply wept. Their homeworld had been stripped of resources. Their people worked to death in mines. Now suddenly they were told they were free. Many didn't know how to process it. Across 23 conquered worlds, species tried to remember what freedom meant, and the humans watched. Not as conquerors, not as new masters, just watched and waited. On the Remembrance, Captain Chen met with her senior staff. The bridge was calm despite the massive changes happening across the galaxy. Commander Park pulled up casualty reports. Final numbers, he said. 1,300 Imperial crew members killed when the Eternal Dominion was destroyed in the first engagement. 473 crew members killed during the Grand Armada battle from life support failures and accidents. 0 human casualties. 0 casualties among the surrendered forces. Still too many, Chen said quietly. Each one of those deaths is on us. You gave them every chance to surrender, Park argued. I know, but they were following orders from leaders who lied to them. They died for a system that used them. She looked at the casualty list. Make sure their families receive full death benefits, better than what the Empire would have given, and send letters of apology to each family. Some won't accept them, Park warned. I know, but we have to try. Chen pulled up another display. What's the status on the war crime trials? Admiral Thessa is organizing the prosecution. She's turned over sealed files containing evidence of 3,000 years of Imperial crimes. The list is... It's extensive, Captain. Hundreds of genocides, thousands of planets stripped of resources, billions of beings enslaved or killed. Chen felt tired. So tired. And the prisoners? 347 senior Imperial officers in custody, all being held in comfortable conditions. They have legal representation, full access to evidence against them, everything we would give our own people. Good. Chen stood and walked to the viewing port. Outside, she could see dozens of Imperial ships now flying white flags of surrender. We didn't return for revenge, James. We returned to stop this from ever happening again. The trials need to be fair, transparent, evidence-based. We have to show the galaxy what real justice looks like. Some people want blood, Park said carefully. The Krell especially. They want the Imperial leaders executed immediately. I understand their anger, but execution without trial makes us no better than the Empire. Chen turned to face him. Our ancestors were murdered without justice. We won't honor their memory by becoming the same monsters. What about Dracon? He'll face trial like everyone else. If found guilty, he'll be imprisoned. If the evidence somehow shows he's innocent, he goes free. Chen smiled sadly. That's what justice means. Even for our enemies. The trials began 3 weeks later. The location was carefully chosen. Not on a human world. Not on the old Imperial capital. Instead, on Krell Prime, the homeworld of one of the oldest conquered species. The courthouse was built specifically for this purpose. Large enough to hold the accused, the witnesses, the judges, and representatives from every species that had been harmed by the Empire. Cameras broadcast everything across the galaxy. Complete transparency. The judges were chosen from neutral species, beings who had no connection to either humanity or the Empire. 3 judges, all respected legal scholars. The prosecution was led by Admiral Thessa. She presented evidence calmly and professionally. Documents, recordings, testimony from survivors. High Counselor Dracon was the first major trial. He sat in the defendant's area wearing simple gray clothes. No chains, no restraints. Just a broken old man who had once commanded armies. His lawyer argued that Dracon had been following Imperial law, that by the standards of his culture, his actions were legal, that he was a product of his time. Thessa countered with evidence. Video recordings of Dracon ordering civilian centers bombed. Documents showing he had personally approved slave raids on peaceful worlds. Testimony from soldiers who had carried out his orders. The defendant claims he was following Imperial law, Thessa said to the court. But slavery was illegal under galactic law. Genocide was illegal. Torture was illegal. The Empire ignored these laws because they believed themselves above them. She pulled up more evidence. The defendant wasn't a simple soldier following orders. He was a member of the High Council. He created the orders. He chose cruelty when mercy was possible. He chose violence when peace was available. Dracon's lawyer tried to argue diminished responsibility, cultural differences, wartime necessity. The judges listened to everything. They reviewed thousands of pages of evidence. They heard from 63 witnesses, including survivors of attacks Dracon had ordered. The trial lasted 6 weeks. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. High Counselor Dracon, the head judge said, "You are found guilty of crimes against sapient species. Genocide, enslavement, torture, mass murder. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable." Dracon stood, his face empty of expression. He had stopped arguing weeks ago. Stopped defending himself. The evidence had broken him. "You are sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. You will serve this sentence in a facility that meets all galactic standards for humane treatment. You will receive medical care, adequate food, and the opportunity for education and reflection." The courtroom was silent. Many had expected execution. Some were disappointed. Others were relieved. Captain Chen, watching from the observation area, felt no satisfaction. Just sadness. Dracon had wasted his life building an empire of suffering. Now he would spend the rest of it understanding what he had done. "Justice doesn't feel as good as I thought it would," Commander Park said beside her. "It's not supposed to feel good," Chen replied. "It's supposed to be right." Similar trials followed. 239 Imperial officers were found guilty of various crimes. Some received long prison sentences. Others received shorter terms based on their level of responsibility and willingness to cooperate. 108 officers were found not guilty. The evidence showed they had opposed the worst atrocities or had only followed direct orders under threat of death. They were released, though many chose to leave the former Imperial territories entirely. The galaxy watched every trial, saw evidence presented fairly, saw defendants given real defense, saw justice that wasn't revenge. It changed something. Species that had been enemies for millennia started talking. The Tharnax and Sororian, who had fought bitter wars under Imperial manipulation, discovered they had been played against each other. They began peace negotiations. The Krell established a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Instead of executing every Imperial collaborator, they tried to understand why people had worked with the oppressors. Some were punished. Others were forgiven. All were heard. Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to heal. But there were still problems. Resources had to be redistributed. Conquered worlds needed rebuilding. Economic systems collapsed when the Imperial trade network fell apart. The Empire's worst nightmare realized. A human warship appeared from nowhere. 50 years had passed since the fall of the Valorian Empire. Half a century of peace, growth, and slow healing. Captain Sarah Chen was old now. Her hair had gone completely white. Her face carried lines earned from decades of difficult decisions. But her eyes were still sharp, still watchful. She stood in the memorial garden on Earth, the human homeworld. Around her, flowers bloomed in carefully tended beds. Trees provided shade. And in the center, a wall of black stone stretched toward the sky. Carved into the stone were 3,000 names. Every person who had died when the Empire destroyed the colony ship knew. Dawned 250 years ago, scientists, families, children, all murdered for the crime of existing. Chen visited the memorial every year on this day, the anniversary of the massacre. She always came alone, always spent an hour reading the names, remembering why humanity had returned, remembering what they had fought for. Today was different. Today she wasn't alone. A young Krell woman stood nearby, hesitant. Her scales were bright green, marking her as barely an adult. She carried flowers. "Excuse me," the Krell said nervously. "Are you Captain Chen?" "The Captain Chen?" Chen smiled gently. "I am. Though I'm retired now. Just Sarah these days. My name is Vela. My grandmother—" The Krell paused, gathering courage. "My grandmother was alive when your ships appeared. She was a slave in the Imperial mines on Krell Prime. She said she would have died there if your people hadn't come." "I'm glad she survived," Chen said. Vela stepped closer to the memorial wall. "I wanted to see this, to understand what started everything, why humans came back after so long." She touched the stone gently. 3,000 names. 3,000 people who never got to see the galaxy they died trying to explore. "They were dreamers," Chen said quietly. "Explorers, scientists, parents who wanted their children to see the stars. The Empire killed them for no reason except fear. And you made the Empire answer for it." Vela looked at Chen with something like awe. "You could have destroyed everything. My teachers say your weapons could have cracked planets, but you chose justice instead." "Justice, not vengeance," Chen agreed. "That was the hard part. It would have been easier to simply kill everyone responsible and move on. But easy isn't right. Some Krell still think you should have killed more Imperial leaders," Vela admitted. "I know, and I understand their anger, but if we had given in to that anger, we would have become the same monsters we defeated." Chen looked at the names again. "These people died believing sapient beings could be better than that. We honored them by proving it." Vela placed her flowers at the base of the memorial. "I'm studying interspecies law at the university. I want to work for the Galactic Council, to help make sure nothing like the Empire ever happens again." Chen felt warmth in her chest. This was why they had come back. Not just to punish the guilty, but to give young people like Vela a future worth fighting for. "The galaxy needs people like you," Chen said. "People who remember the past but work for a better future." After Vela left, Chen sat on a bench nearby. She pulled out a small device and activated a holographic display. Reports from across the galaxy scrolled past. The Krell had rebuilt their civilization. Their homeworld was healing from centuries of strip mining. Population was growing again. Culture was being recovered from old records. They were happy. The Tharnax had established a democratic government. Their first free elections in 500 years had happened last month. Celebrations had lasted for days. The Saurian species had made peace with 3 former enemies. They were building trade networks instead of weapons. Their economy was growing. 17 other liberated species showed similar progress. Not perfect. There were still disputes, still problems, but they were solving them with words and law, not weapons and conquest. The old Imperial worlds had been hardest to rebuild. Species raised to believe in conquest and superiority had to learn cooperation. Many struggled, Some refused to change and isolated themselves on remote worlds. Others, especially the younger generations, embraced the new order. The Valorian species itself, the founders of the Empire, had split into two groups. The traditionalists who still believed they should rule, and the reformers who acknowledged their ancestors' crimes and tried to make amends. It wasn't clean. It wasn't simple. But it was progress. Chen pulled up another file. The Terran United Defense Force status report. 47 ships still in service, patrolling the galaxy. They rarely fought. Mostly they mediated disputes, delivered aid, and showed force when some would-be conqueror needed to be reminded that the galaxy had guardians. The precursor technology that made humanity so powerful was still classified. Humanity shared some innovations carefully and slowly: medical technology that could cure diseases, agricultural methods that could feed billions, clean energy that could power civilizations, but the weapons stayed secret. The quantum phase shifters, the reality anchors, the dimensional drives, that technology would be shared when the galaxy proved it could be trusted with such power, maybe in another century, maybe never. Chen understood the irony. Humanity had become the guardians by holding the biggest stick. But they used that stick wisely, sparingly, and only when absolutely necessary. Her communicator chimed. She answered, and Commander Park's face appeared. He was old too now, gray-haired and weathered. "Sarah, sorry to interrupt your Memorial Day," he said. "But we have a situation," Chen sighed. "What kind of situation?" "The Mordex species out in the Beta sector. They've conquered 3 neighboring systems in the past month. Enslaved the populations, set up a military dictatorship. Their leader is calling himself Emperor and claims he's going to build a new empire." Chen felt tired. So tired. "Have we sent warnings?" 3 times. He ignored all of them. "Says the Terran United Defense Force is a myth, that you're too few to stop a real empire from rising. How many ships does he have?" "About 200. Old Imperial designs, mostly. Nothing that matches our technology, but enough to hurt a lot of people if we don't intervene." Chen stood slowly. Her bones ached. She was 87 years old. She had earned retirement, but some responsibilities couldn't be set aside. "Send the remembrance," she said, "along with justice and retribution. Tell the Mordex Emperor he has 48 hours to release his prisoners and surrender for trial. If he refuses, we demonstrate why empires don't work anymore," Park finished. "Exactly." Chen looked at the memorial one more time. "We made a promise. To these people and everyone who suffered under the old empire, never again. We keep that promise no matter how tired we get." 2 days later, the Mordex Emperor refused to surrender. He called humanity cowards and liars. He said 3 ships couldn't stop his glorious empire. The TUDF remembrance appeared in orbit above his throne world. It broadcast one message: "You were warned. You chose this." The Emperor ordered his fleet to attack. 200 ships against 3. The battle lasted 6 minutes. Not one person died. The human ships disabled every Mordex vessel using the same quantum entanglement warfare they had used against the Valorian Grand Armada. Systems shut down. Weapons failed. Ships drifted powerless. Then the remembrance teleported the Mordex Emperor and his top generals onto its bridge. The new captain, a young woman named Torres, looked at the Emperor with cold eyes. "You were told what happens to those who build empires on suffering. You didn't believe it. Now you know." The Emperor stood trial 3 months later, found guilty, sentenced to 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole if he showed genuine rehabilitation. The Mordex people, freed from his rule, established their own democratic government. The galaxy watched and remembered. Empires were no longer possible. Not with humanity watching. On Earth, Chen watched the trial results with satisfaction. Another tyrant stopped, another group of people freed. Another step toward the future they had promised. She received a letter that week. From Dracon, of all people. The old High Counselor was still alive, still serving his life sentence. But his letter was different from the angry, bitter messages he had sent in early years. "Captain Chen," he wrote, "I am an old man now and I finally understand what you tried to teach me. I spent my life believing strength meant domination. That power meant the right to rule. I was wrong. Strength means protecting. Power means serving. I wasted my life hurting others when I could have helped them. I cannot undo my crimes, but I want you to know I finally understand why you stopped me. Thank you for not killing me. Thank you for giving me time to see the truth." Chen read the letter twice. Then she filed it away. Draken's redemption, if real, didn't erase his crimes. But it proved that even the worst people could change if given the chance. That was the point. That was always the point. The decades continued to pass. Chen eventually died at the age of 93, peacefully in her sleep. The galaxy mourned. Memorial services were held on 40 different worlds. Even some former Imperial officers attended, acknowledging that she had been right and they had been wrong. The Terran United Defense Force continued its mission. New captains took command of the ships. New crews trained to use the precursor technology responsibly. The mission remained the same: protect the innocent, stop oppressors, maintain peace.